Welcome to Learning in the Making Live. We're going to get started. My name is Dora and I am from Maker Ed. And if you are joining us today, you are joining us for our third live stream video in this new Learning in the Making Live series. Every week we are working on bringing you a different theme. Where we will host a making activity as a video for you to follow along with or to watch later as a recording, as well as providing you some resources, inspiration, and project guides for maker activities that you can do at home. So thank you for joining us today. I have two very awesome people who will be here with us on this video. If you want to introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Kyle Cornforth and I am a home cook, and I'm also the executive director of Maker Ed. And I'm joined today by a very special guest.
Hi, my name is Ramona. I'm in third grade. I love math and dancing, so you might see me dance a lot.
Ooh, awesome. Thank you for joining us, Ramona and Kyle. I'm excited to see your math dance moves. In my head, you put math and dancing together, so now it's gonna be math dancing. So thanks. I'm super excited for this week's video. Last week, we learned all about zines. So we practiced some mindfulness. We learned about the history of zines, and then we hosted a zine making tutorial where you could use zines as a way to process and cope with your thoughts and feelings and anything else that you're struggling with. If you would like to see that video and you didn't get a chance to look at it, you can go to our blog at makered.org, or you can go to our YouTube channel and watch the video. So you should definitely go check it out after you watch this week's video. So for this week, Ramona, can you tell us what we're doing this week?
Today we'll be making pancakes.
Ooh, pancakes.
So we are making pancakes, and Dora, before we get really started, I just want to also share that if you hear a lot of chirping in the background, we have 7 new baby chicks that just became part of our family, and they're in the living room, and they're very loud. So it's a very exciting day for us here. So our family makes pancakes almost every week. It's our Saturday morning special breakfast, and pancakes are a really huge comfort food for me. When I was a child and growing up, my dad used to always make pancakes using the Bisquick box. Bisquick makes like really light and fluffy pancakes. And when I had my first daughter, that was the thing that I wanted for my first meal, is for my dad to come and make me the pancakes that he had made when I was a child. So they hold a lot of meaning for me. And during this time where we're sheltering in place, food in general is a huge source of comfort, and food in the world is so political and it's so personal, and it means so many different things to so many different people. It can be comforting, it can bring joy, it brings community and communion. It can also cause stress and anxiety and worry. And so today we're really excited to share a family recipe that we've been perfecting over the years. And food, pancakes are something that's eaten almost all over the world. So there's crepes, there's latkes, Russian blinis. In America, you might hear Johnny cakes or griddle cakes or buckwheat cakes, and they're just a very ubiquitous food. So we're very excited to share this with y'all today. And we've been exploring a lot of the math and even some chemistry in what happens when you make pancakes.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that story. I'm really excited because I also remember I have 4 brothers and sisters, and I remember every Sunday, not Saturday, but Sunday, my mom would make us pancakes, and she would make them really big and really fluffy, and we would eat them together. And I come from a predominantly Spanish household, so we call them just pancakes or panqueques. So it's interesting to hear all the different ways that people call the same food in different cultures. So it's really awesome. I'm excited to be here with you and Ramona to make some pancakes and to learn your recipe and maybe try it out for myself. And there is so much math in cooking, from measurements and ratios to serving sizes and the quantity of ingredients that you put and how they interact with each other. So I'm excited to see where this takes us.
Yeah, ready to get started?
Yes.
All right. So if you're at home and you're cooking today, the first thing you need to do is think about your hair and your hands. So Moni and I are going to tie our hair back so that we don't get food or hair in pancakes. And then we're also gonna wash our hands. Especially important during this time is keeping our hands clean. So I wash the backs of my hands and my thumbs and in between my fingers.
How many seconds are you supposed to wash your hands for again?
How many seconds?
20.
20 whole seconds.
ABC song or birthday song twice.
The ABC,
I mean 3 times. I'm not sure.
ABC song or birthday song twice. So while Moni is finishing washing up her hands, I'll just remind you that if you are cooking and you wash your hands, that's great. You've got clean hands. But if you have a scratch on your head or a scratch on your neck, or you need to pick your nose, you need to wash your hands again. So it's good to wash your hands throughout the whole entire process. You get in between your fingers? All right, great. So the first thing that I like to do when I'm getting ready to cook is to make sure that I have all the things I'm going to need, like pretty accessible. So the first thing we want to do, Dora, is go over the equipment and materials that we have. I'm going to just switch our view so that you can see our countertop. And then Moni's going to take us through the tools.
For my tools, I have a big bowl, a whisk, a pan for melting butter, my griddle, which is over there, and my measuring cups and spoons, and yeah.
Oh, I feel like I already see a little bit of math coming on here.
Yeah.
I noticed that you have the measuring cups and spoons and that they probably have some numbers on them. As you fill up your cups and spoons when you're measuring out your ingredients for your recipe, you probably have to pay attention to the numbers that are on them. What are the numbers on those cups and spoons? Like, what do they measure?
We have 3 types of measuring tools. This set is for measuring cups of things. This is 1 cup, half cup, a third of a cup, and a fourth of a cup.
So Dora, one thing I want to notice is that these are so old that you can't really see the numbers on them anymore because we use them so often. So we just have to look at how they fit together to remember which one is which.
Yeah. We use these for dry ingredients like flour and sugar. Then we have our small measuring spoons. We have a tablespoon, a teaspoon, a half a teaspoon, and a quarter or 1/4 of a teaspoon. We use these for measuring small amounts of ingredients like salt, baking powder, spices, or vanilla. Finally, we have our liquid measuring cups, which are designed to measure liquids.
Wow, what a great explanation. I love that you can't see the numbers, but you still know what fraction of the measuring cups you're using because you're using your mathematical thinking to say, this is bigger and this is smaller, so I know the fractions. So that's a really great explanation. I think it's really important to know how to use your tools and what your tools are for. Like you just explained, there's a difference between liquid measuring versus small ingredients versus big ingredients. And it looks like we're measuring with a lot of fractions here today, and that's something that we're gonna have to pay attention to later. So for everybody watching at home, I'm just going to do a quick overview of what fractions are and how we're going to be using fractions today. So some of you might already be very familiar with whole numbers, and whole numbers are numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., etc. So these are whole numbers. So when you're saying like 1 cup, 2 cup, 3 cups, 4 cups, but what if we don't have whole number of ingredients? What if we have like parts of a whole? So for example, I'm going to use something I really like called fraction strips. So we're going to say that this is 1 whole, and this could be 1 whole cup, 1 whole teaspoon, 1 whole tablespoon. You can see on mine, I don't use mine as often as you, but mine has the number 1 cup. But if we divide this into 2 equal pieces, then we're gonna get 1/2 and 1/2. And you can see that 1/2 and 1/2 is the same as a whole. But if we divide this into 2 more equal pieces, then we're gonna get 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, and another 1/4. So you're seeing how this 1/4 and this 1/4 fit into this 1/2. And if you want to get even smaller, like for some of those really small measuring spoons that you had, you can even cut this 1/4 into 2 equal pieces, and you get 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, another 1/8, another one, a 1/8, and a 1/8. So you can see that 2 1/8 is the same as 1/4, 2 1/4 is the same as 1/2, and 2 1/2 is the same as 1 whole. So this is like a nice fraction model that I like to use. And when we talk about fractions, we're talking fractions as part of a whole. So you have parts of a whole. And the way you write these, you might remember writing these before, is like a number on top with a line and another number on bottom. The names for these numbers are numerators. The name, it's a really big name, but numerator is just the number of parts that we have. And then denominator is another big word, but it's just the total number of parts that the whole is divided into.
Yeah, my teacher taught us a trick on how to know, because some people have trouble knowing if the top number is numerator or the bottom number is denominator. And she told us that denominator kind of sounds like demons, and demons underworld, not like up above. Or you could do D for down.
Oh, that's a really great way of remembering, because these names are kind of big and they kind of sound similar. So denominator, D for down, or D for demons. That's how you know this is the bottom part of the number. So thanks for sharing that so that we can remember what these numbers are called. So that's just a really quick overview of what fractions are. And it looks like in this recipe, we might be using some fractions. So it might be nice to remember what they are and how to use them.
I think we're going to use a lot of fractions. And Dora, we didn't talk about this before, but when I was looking at your really beautiful breakdown of the different sizes, it made me wonder when you got to 1/8, because this is a 1/4 cup and then this is a tablespoon. So it made me wonder how many tablespoons is in a 1/4 cup. And as you get smaller, when do you transition into the smaller measuring? So maybe that's something we could explore later. But the next thing we need to do is make sure we have all of our ingredients. So I have all of the things that are listed ready to go. We've got our flour, we've got sugar, we've got salt and baking powder, we've got eggs and butter, and actually I forgot one thing, we need milk.
Work hard, don't want to miss it.
So I'm just going to show you the ingredients list for those of you watching at home. If you want to just follow along, or we're watching this later, you can pause it here and pick up your ingredients.
So then we need to talk about flair, Dora, because flair is a very important part of the practice of making any recipe. So all recipes can be considered like a guide. And as a cook, one of the most fun things is to figure out what about the recipe do you want to adapt a little bit. So we suggested all kinds of different flair you can add. Flair is not a technical cooking term. It's something that I just made up for today, which is to add flavor. So you could add fruit, berries, or bananas is a great thing to add. Some people like to add nuts like walnuts and pecans if you want to add texture. You could add spices. So if you really like cinnamon and cardamom, or you wanted to have like a chai flavor, you could add some other spices in there. And then we have a treat that we like to add. What is it, Moni?
Chocolate.
So sometimes on Saturdays, we'll also add chocolate into the batter, because why not? You made it to the weekend.
That sounds really delicious. I'm going to have to try out these new ways of making pancakes and adding different flair.
So I think we have everything that we need to get started. Moni, are you ready?
I am.
All right. So do you want to, one of the things we talked about is how we, how many Do you want to ask me the question?
Yeah. How much? I have one question.
Yeah.
How much pancakes does this recipe make?
That is a really important question. So every recipe will say that the amount of people it serves or the quantities that it will make. Pancakes, this recipe says it serves 4 to 6, but that depends totally on how big or small you make your pancakes. So you could make like one giant pancake for each person, or you could make lots of little ones and everyone can have a lot of pancakes. It just depends on what size you like. We might have it because it's just the two of us, but I also like to have a little batter left over. So we're going to do the full recipe, and then I'll save some so that tomorrow morning I have it ready to make a quick breakfast. You can also make the whole batch and then freeze them and put them in the toaster. So just like a toaster waffle or a toaster pancake, you can do that too and save it for later. So Dora, what would work for your family in terms of the amounts of the recipe that we make?
So you said that this serves 4 to 6 people, depending on the size of the pancakes.
Yeah.
Well, I have like a really big family. I have me, my husband, my mom, her husband, my sister, my other sister, my brother, my niece, like their spouses. Like I have a lot of people in my family, and we like to eat. And we like to eat a lot of pancakes because it reminds us of our childhood. So I'm probably gonna have to double your recipe. So as you're teaching us, people at home who might be watching this and you're teaching me how to make this recipe, I'm gonna have to double each of the ingredients so that I can have enough to feed my family when I try this out later.
It sounds really fun to have a big family like that. Okay, so we're gonna do the full recipe and then you're gonna take us through the doubling. So we are gonna get started. We're gonna go back to our counter so you can see what we're doing. And I'll take these things away. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to get our butter melted. So if you have a microwave, you can pop this in the microwave, but what does the recipe call for, Ramona?
It calls for 3/4 of a stick.
Okay, so the butter people make it very easy for us to see. 6 tablespoons. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 3/4. Dora, I feel like there's a math alert here.
There is a math alert. So you say that you need 3/4 of a stick to make your original recipe.
Yep.
So I'm just going to show a little bit how to do the math of doubling 3/4 of a stick. So 3/4 is actually 3/4. So if I have a fourth, and a fourth, I want to double this, right? I have to double all of the ingredients. So I'm going to need another 1/4, another 1/4, and another 1/4. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1/4. However, I don't think I want to be cutting a fourth, a fourth, a fourth, a fourth, a fourth 6 times. Yeah, so if I remember my fraction model that I showed you earlier, 2 of these is actually equal to 1/2. And 2 of these are equal to 1/2. And 2 of these are equal to 1/2. And that seems a little bit more doable, but I think that we can actually make this simpler. Because if you recall, 2 1/2 is also equal to 1 whole. So this is another vocabulary word that I'm going to introduce you to today because it'll be very important. These are called equivalent fractions. And equivalent fractions are fractions that may look a little bit different, but they actually have the same value. So even though this is 2 blue strips of 1/2, they're the same as 1 whole. So in reality, these are the same. I actually only need a whole stick and a half of butter. And because mathematicians like to be precise with their work and they like to remember the numbers that they're working with, I'm going to write this down in a chart so I can remember that this is 1.5 sticks of butter. So I need a lot more butter to be able to make the recipe for double the amount of pancakes.
That's so helpful. Thank you for showing us that math. So
yeah, it's really helpful because we were doing fractions in school, so I can like refresh my mind with your things.
Oh, good, great. Even when you're making pancakes and cooking, you can be refreshing everything that you're learning in school.
Okay, so we've got our butter melting on the stove, and now we're going to measure out our dry ingredients. So the first ingredient that we're going to work with is going to be our flour. And Moni is going to show us the trick for measuring out flour.
Sure. I scoop the flour out of the jar using the measuring cup, and I'm gonna use half a measuring cup to do 3 scoops to get 1.5 cups.
Oh, why do you do that?
Well, my hands are small, and so it's easier to scoop with a half a cup than a full one. Also, when I scoop, I get a big heaping cup full, and then I use a butter knife to level off the top.
Oh, why do you do that?
Because scooping the measuring cup into the flour and leveling the top means you aren't packing the flour. If you pack the flour, you can end up with too much flour, and then it won't be then you won't be sticking to the recipe.
Wow, that is some really great mathematical conversation that you just like had, Ramona. That is really impressive because we just learned about equivalent fractions like 5 seconds ago. And so you noticed that you needed a whole cup and a half of flour, but instead of doing a whole cup and then a half a cup, you actually did 3 1/2s, and that's the same thing as a whole and a half. So that's really awesome. For my recipe, I'm gonna need double the amount. So I'm just gonna add twice as much flour, and that's a whole and a half. But you might notice that this is the same thing as another whole. So instead of this, I'm gonna use another whole. So wow, I need a lot of flour. I'm gonna write this down because that's what we need to do as mathematicians.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I need 3 cups of flour. That was a great technique that you showed us, Moni.
So then the next thing that we're going to put in is the baking powder. And Ramona, can you show us how to do that?
Yeah, what do we do it with?
It calls for a teaspoon.
What does the baking powder do in it exactly? Why do we put it in?
Well, that is a great question. Now we get to talk a little bit about some chemistry. So baking powder, chemistry. You want to do 2 of those. Okay. Baking powder helps our baked goods expand or have a larger texture or form. So what happens is that when you add water or heat, a chemical reaction takes place and carbon dioxide is produced. It starts to expand and create air pockets in your food, and then increases the volume. So it's the secret ingredient to make things fluffy.
Oh, wow. So I'm hearing that it helps make like the pancakes more fluffier because there's carbon dioxide being produced. But what if I don't have like baking powder? What if I have baking soda instead? Isn't that the same thing? I can just do the same thing with it?
It's not the same thing? No. It's not quite the same thing, but you can make the same thing happen with baking soda. So if you don't have baking powder at home, but you do have baking soda, we can show you and tell you what to do. So here's the thing. I just heard this from one of our team members, so I'm going to share this like reminder. This is a little cute story. I don't have it memorized. Baking powder has the power. Baking soda needs something sour.
Oh, what does that mean?
What does that mean? So baking soda, I actually have a little beaker here in my sink, and I put some baking soda inside it. Baking soda is a base, so it's alkaline. And I'm going to add an acid. I'm going to add vinegar. And what do you think is going to happen?
I'm guessing nothing happens at all.
Nothing happens at all. Dora, do you want to make a hypothesis?
This reminds me of those volcano experiments that we used to do in school. So I'm guessing that it might explode.
Let's see. So I'm going to just pour some in here and let's see what happens.
I was wrong.
Oh, you were wrong. Look at that. So what baking powder has in it is baking soda and a dry acid. Usually it's cream of tartar. And basically it creates that, but in a smaller, it doesn't explode our pancakes, but it does create that for on a smaller scale to add fluffiness and texture to our food. So if you don't have baking powder, you can use a 1/4 teaspoon baking soda, a 1/2 teaspoon lemon juice or vinegar to equal 1 teaspoon of baking powder to have the same result.
So when you make your own baking powder with the baking soda, do you wait for it to fizzle out, or how do you put it in afterward, and what state is it at?
Oh, that's a really good question.
It's actually very good. I actually really want to know.
So what I would do, so because with a lot of baking recipes, you keep dry ingredients and wet ingredients separate, I would put the baking soda into the dry ingredients now, and then I would add the lemon juice or the vinegar to the wet ingredients when we do that part, and the chemical reaction will happen when you mix the two together.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. So this sounds like there's so much math and a lot of science and chemistry in cooking. That's so impressive. Thank you for showing us. Just so I can remember how much ingredients I need when I double my recipe.
Yep.
You said we needed 2 teaspoons of baking powder?
Yes.
Teaspoons? And if I want to double that, then I'm just going to do twice as many. So I really just need 4. So I'm going to write that down as 4 teaspoons. And just a reminder for people who might be watching at home, a teaspoon is different than a tablespoon. So just make sure that you're being conscious of that, especially if you're using baking soda and an acid instead. So if you have a teaspoon, this is a teaspoon. I don't have a tablespoon, but a tablespoon is much bigger. So just a little hint for people making this at home.
Thank you for showing us that math. So we've got one more dry ingredient, sugar. We're going to add 1 tablespoon of it. Moni, can you do that for us, please?
Yes, I can. Oh.
That's a good preview of our griddle.
Yeah, that was our griddle, which I was talking about. 1 teaspoon.
1 tablespoon of sugar.
Tablespoon.
So as when Moni measures that out, if you don't want to put sugar in your pancakes, some alternatives for sweet would be to put honey or maple syrup in. And again, I would add that to the wet ingredients when we get to that part. But Dora, if we're putting 1 tablespoon in, what do you need to put in for your recipe?
Ooh, so this one's an easy one because we're just working with wholes and not fractions. If I have 1 tablespoon, so 1 whole tablespoon, and I double it, then I have 1 and 1. So I really just need 2 tablespoons of sugar for my recipe. That sounds doable.
Awesome. Oh, we forgot one dry ingredient. I'm sorry, salt. Why would we add salt, Ramona? Let's do the salt.
In small amounts, the salt intensifies any flavor. So we want to intensify.
We want to make sure that, yeah,
so
that
it's
they
not
taste really
bland.
good. Yeah.
Oh, so it's not about it being salty, it's just about having more flavor. Wow. Yeah. So for me, I have similar, kind of an easy one. If I have 1 teaspoon of salt and I want to double it, then I really just need 2 teaspoons of salt. Easy peasy.
Excellent. Okay, we're getting so close. So now that our dry ingredients are measured out, we want to whisk those together so that the reasons why we do this is because if you take a spoonful of salt and dump it in, and then you don't mix it with the other dry ingredients, what will happen is that you'll end up with a big salt pocket or a big pocket of baking powder in your mouth. So you want to make sure that you are mixing it together when things are still dry.
Yeah, then it'll be like the salt was never there in the other parts.
Right, you'll have too much salt or lacking in salt in some bites. So our dry ingredients look perfect. Now we're going to move on to the wet ingredients. So Moni, can you put that aside and then grab the wet measure, please? Yep. Okay, so Dora, we're moving into wet ingredients, and the first one that we have up is milk.
Oh, so how much milk do you have in your recipe?
So our recipe calls for 1.5 cups.
Okay, so if you have 1.5 cups, so you have 1.5, and I want to double it, then I'm just going to have another whole and another half. but we already learned earlier that 2/2 is the same as another whole. So I really need 3 cups of milk. Wow, that's a lot of milk.
Yeah. One thing I noticed is that the main dry ingredient and the main wet ingredient are the same amount. You have 3 cups of flour and 3 cups of water.
Well, that's a really good math connection. Look at you making patterns. Yes.
Okay, so I want to share something exciting about what liquid measures. So it's really hard to tell when you're looking from the top if you have the right amount. So I like to lift mine up so I can see the numbers on the side. We have 1.5 cups. Or if you're cooking with small humans and they're eye level to the counter, then they can help you with that and to tell you when to stop as you pour it out. So that's our milk. And Dora, we're going to use 2 eggs. How many eggs are you going to use?
So if you need 2 eggs, that's 2 wholes, then I'm going to need to double that. I need 4 eggs total. So that's a lot of eggs, but maybe when your chicks get a little bit bigger and start laying some eggs, I can come over and borrow some eggs from you.
Yeah.
We're going to have some blue eggs, I think. So I'm going to bring you a dozen when we have our, when they get laying in the summer. So as Moni's cracking the eggs, I'm going to turn on our.
I got a shell in there.
You got a shell in there?
Yeah.
Great. We can show how to get a shell out of there.
Oh, okay.
Keep
so
going.
do it.
So I'm going to turn on the stove and start to heat up my griddle. If you're at home, now's a good time to do that.
Wait, Kyle, are you an adult? Should you be turning on your griddle by yourself?
I am an adult, and so it is okay for me to turn on my griddle alone. But if you are not an adult, please ask for help on this part.
Also, after handling raw eggs, whoever is cracking the eggs, make sure you wash your hands afterward because it's really not good to have raw eggs stuck on your hands.
Ooh, that's a really good reminder.
It's a good reminder. So you said you got a shell in here?
Yeah.
Okay. So normally what I would do if we had a shell go into the mixture, and what I'm doing now is I'm just breaking up the yolks because we want to make sure before we mix these together that the yolks are all broken up. Normally what I would do, Dora, is to pull out like cheesecloth or a strainer that you use that's for pasta, or I would take a spoon and kind of dig around in there. Sometimes I even would just put my whole hand in there and fish it out. So because of all this setup that we have here, I can't actually get to those tools. So I'm just gonna let the shell be there and someone's gonna get a surprise. But those are the things I would do to get it out.
Okay, that's good advice to know, especially for anyone watching at home. If you have little ones that you're cooking with, you want to show them how to crack eggs, and a little eggshell goes in there, it's totally fine. You can use any of those techniques that Kyle just described to get the eggshells out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so our wet ingredients are mixed, our dry ingredients are mixed. Now we get to do the magic.
It's very satisfying.
Satisfying. I can't wait to make my own recipe later. I'm gonna need big bowls.
You could keep an eye out for that shell, and if we can spot it, we might be able to catch it.
Oh yeah.
I like hearing your chicks in the background, Kyle.
This is some ASMR right here. Okay,
Oh, I see it.
great. Let's just stop there then.
No, it's at the bottom. It's not coming out.
Oh, well, even better. So that's another thing. It has a heavier weight than the milk, so it goes down to the bottom, and our eggshell stayed at the bottom of the cup.
Wow, that sounds like another cool science connection. It's heavier than the milk, and so it goes to the bottom.
So Moni's going to mix that together, and then as it starts to come together, once it's mixed, we're going to add our butter. So remember at the beginning when we started with our butter and we melted it, now it's been melted and it's also had about 10 minutes to cool down, which is great because if you put scalding hot butter into a mixture that has raw eggs, then the eggs are going to start to cook, and then you're going to have scrambled eggs inside your pancakes.
I totally forgot about the butter, Kyle, and I have it here on my ingredients list. Thank you for the reminder.
Also for the little ones, it's very hot.
Right. It's hot for the little ones. That's true. You're such a good helper chef, Moni. Okay, that's looking beautiful. Let's add the butter in there.
Okay.
We're getting so close to the cooking part. Nicely done. Gorgeous. Okay. Mix that together. So now this is the moment where you do get to make a couple more decisions about your batter before you start cooking it. Because if your batter is really thick, then when you pour it on the griddle, it won't spread as far, but it will poof up more. If you have batter that's very thin, it will spread more and make a bigger pancake, but it won't get as poofy. So
I think it's a little wet.
You think it's a little wet?
Add a little bit more flour.
Okay. What would you do if it was really dry?
You would add some more milk or water.
So if it's too dry, you add more liquid, and if it's too wet, you add more flour.
But I have a question. Since we add flour when it's too dry, but why don't we add baking soda or salt or any of the other dry ingredients to our mixture instead of flour?
Oh, that's a really great question. We don't, because baking powder or soda, remember the experiment that we did?
Yeah.
So it serves to make the food puffy, not thick, but flour makes it thicker. So we don't want them to go too poofy, but we do want them to be thick enough to pour and get on the griddle in the size that we want it. So that's looking great. Dora, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Since we're about to make our pancakes, what shape do you want your pancake to be in?
Ooh, well, I like the original circle, like say if you could make a circle pancake, but if you could try to make a Minnie Mouse shaped pancake, that would be really cool too.
My grandma, we have a dog named Ducky. It has one of those ears, like one down, one up. And my grandma, she's really good at making pancake designs, so she like makes one of my dog, and it's really adorable. She's really good at that.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I need to up my skills in making pancake art and learn how to make some cool pancake art like that, because I usually just make them in circles.
Yeah.
Okay, so remember, Dora wants chocolate chips on her pancake. So we're gonna go over to our stove now. Can you, oh, you can see that steam coming up off it. Can you see that? Looks like maybe it's a little hot, actually. I'm gonna turn down the volume a little on that burner. While I'm waiting for that, I'm gonna think a little bit about Dora's question about making Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse pancake. And I'm gonna bring fractions into it again, because I'm gonna use the 1/3 of a cup to make the face, and then I'm gonna use a smaller cup. I'm gonna use the 1/4 cup to make the ears.
Oh, I love that math thinking, Kyle, because you're seeing that 1/3 of a cup is bigger than 1/4 of a cup. So 1/3 of a cup will make the big part, and 4 cups will make the smaller part. So it's good math thinking, Kyle.
Thanks, Dora. I've learned a lot in doing this activity with you. I'm having a lot of fun. Okay, here we go. So this is gonna be your face. Oh, you can hear that sizzling. And then we'll do a little ear.
Even though it's less than the face, a whole 1/4 cup is a lot for the ears. So make sure not to fill it all the way up, just like halfway.
That's a good point. So then I'm just gonna do a couple of regular circles.
Ooh, I'm already hungry.
Yeah.
I wish we weren't social distancing so I could have some pancakes, Kyle.
Yeah.
We're gonna make you pancakes in real life when we're back together, Dora. Okay, Moni, we need to put the chocolate chips on those quick, because do you see them bubbling already?
Oh yeah, I do.
So remember how we were talking about the bubbles before and the baking powder? That chemical reaction, now that we've applied heat, is happening even faster. And I use those bubbles as a I basically think they're talking to me. Dora, I'm going to give you some blueberry eyes and a blueberry nose.
It's just like a snowman because you don't use the same material for the mouth as you do with the eyes and nose, so works out.
Oh, it is just like a snowman. They look amazing.
Gorgeous.
Whoa. So golden brown.
Okay. So once you've flipped them over, there's not the bubbles to tell you if they're done or not. So I kind of touch them again. If you're at home and you're a kiddo, ask for help to make sure that they're
Oh
ready.
wow.
I kind of look at the bottom. I think this
Don't use your fingers though.
Those look so great. When I was younger, my mom used to make all of us a ton of big pancakes, and with whatever leftover pancake batter she made, she would make a teeny tiny baby pancake, and then me and my siblings would fight for the baby pancake.
Yeah.
So that's what that little one reminded me of.
I love the baby pancakes too. All right, so Dora, what do you want on top of your pancake? We got butter, we've got syrup.
Ooh, my mama always put a lot of syrup on mine, so I would put a lot of syrup and a little bit of butter.
Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of butter. I have this little leftover butter from when we took the 3/4 of a cup, so I'll put that on the top. And then we have a Canadian in our family, so she keeps us very full of Canadian syrup. So I have this Canada 150 special. I've been saving it for a special occasion. I'll pour that on there for you. And then it's going to be Moni's lunch. Look at how beautiful that is.
I can't wait to eat them.
I know, I'm hungry too. I'm gonna need to, now that I have your recipe written down for the original amount and the double amount, I'm gonna have to try this out so that when we can see each other again, we can make some pancakes together.
I can't wait. We miss seeing you in person.
We're gonna have to have a pancake party.
How many people should we invite to make pancakes?
I don't know, like 100?
100?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, then we're gonna have to double, like we're gonna have to increase your recipe by like 25 or 30 times. But now that we understand fractions and we know how to use fractions, then we can totally do it. We can do it.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow, that looks great, Kyle. Thank you so much for walking us through your family recipe for making beautiful pancakes.
Thank you for having us. It's been really fun.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to share one more screen for us.
Those pancakes look so delicious.
These pancakes look so amazing. So if you're watching at home, we would love to see your projects. If you try out this recipe, then share some pictures with us. If you have other recipes where you're finding science and math connections, then share those with us too. You can tag us at maker@org on Twitter or Instagram with the hashtags maker@home and #pancakes. We would love to see what other people are making in this time of social distancing. Maybe you're cooking, maybe you're baking some cookies. Just share this with us. And if you're interested in other resources related to cooking and chemistry and math and science, you can go to the Edible Schoolyard Project at edibleschoolyard.org. They have some really great edible education lessons on cooking, gardening, and even more things that you can do at home and the science behind cooking and gardening. You can also go to American Chemical Society Chemistry for Life at acs.org. They have tons of baking and chemistry resources, experiments, and lessons that you can do at home. And if you want to see even more, if you want to see some videos on pancake art, I need to go watch those so I can increase my pancake art skills. Or if you want to watch more math videos about math and cooking, then go to our blog at makered.org/blog and look for Learning in the Making Cooking. And that's where you can find the resources and videos that we have for you. You can also find some project guides if you want to print out or download a project guide that has the recipe and the math connections. Then you can also go to our blog and find those in English and Spanish.
So many great resources, Dora. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Thanks. And again, people watching out there right now, share your project with us and join us next week. We are going to be focusing on sounds and music. We're going to be making our own instruments with household materials that you can find at home. learning some rhythm, some beats, and just making music together. So again, next week, April 22nd. And if you want more ideas and resources and just want to see more of things that you can do at home, then visit our blog at makered.org/blog.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And as always, we'll be learning in the making.
We're learning in the making all day, every day over here.
Yeah.
Bye. Enjoy your pancakes.